Welcome, and
Yeah.
pretty excited to just kind of dive into Dylan shared with me a bit about some of your music career and some of the things that you have done, and it is awesome. I mean, what you've done as an artist and singer-songwriter. And so this, we tend to like to talk about on Digital Dilemmas, talk about like, how has social media been a part of your life? And so for you, right, in the work that you do, what part has social media played in it? Good, bad, ugly, indifferent?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me come do this, and excited to talk to you as well. Dylan's a good friend, and he's a common ally, so I always like hearing from him, and I always like people he introduced. Excited to hear. Let's see. I mean, look, social media for me, in any sort of meaningful sense, started around MySpace. Right? So I was in a band, and about the time my band started to get some sort of momentum, this thing MySpace crept up in the world, and the only way you could reach fans that you didn't actually meet in person before MySpace, and I guess AOL Instant Messenger maybe, or Yahoo chat
Maybe,
rooms or
yeah,
something.
that's a whole different
That
thing.
was really just a place for like predators to go. With MySpace, you could actually find people that had common interests in cities you didn't live in, and you could post on their wall, or you could request friendship, and you could send them a message, or even send them music. And if they liked it, you could engage with them and invite them to a show. That had never been done before. Like, think about it. The gatekeeping from the music world was, you're not ever going to know a fan unless you get on the radio, you get on TV, or you go play a show in that city. So those are three huge obstacles, because all of those things cost a ton of money to do. They're all expensive.
Yeah.
So you had to have a record label, you had to have funding, you had to have an agent and a manager to do all these things and make it work at a high level to reach fans. Well, MySpace was like, or I can just open my computer for 4 or 5 hours a day and just reach out to people and send them our music. And if I do that enough, we can book a show in that city and we'll get 100 people to show up. That's what we did. I mean, we were playing 200 shows a year, and I would use MySpace to reach out to thousands of people. At some point, we even bought like an automated messaging bot before there was any way to track what bots were. There was, MySpace didn't know how to stop a bot from sending thousands of messages. They didn't even have a message quota at the beginning. So I could send 10,000 messages a day. Didn't fucking matter.
Jeez, that's crazy.
And you could follow tens of thousands of people a day, and they wouldn't stop you. You could follow them, and they'd get a friend request from you. And
that feels like such a crazy. I remember, and then I'm like, it's almost hard to believe that there was a time where we could do that.
And that was wild, because we knew it was a numbers game. Okay, if we're playing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we message 5,000 people the week of, and 100 of them respond, and 50 of them agree to come to the show, then we look like we have a fan base, and we would incentivize. We'll give you a free CD and a poster when you get here. I swear to God, just show up. And so, we were at the very front of that, but we would get to these places and these promoters were mystified. They go, how does this band from Atlanta have 150 people here at this show? It's their first time here, because that had never happened. They're like, you guys on the radio? What is happening?
Right.
Like,
Radio was like the dream.
Right. But there was no way we were getting on the radio at that point. That was, to me, social media 1.0. It also taught us a very valuable lesson in engaging with trolls, right? There was no such thing as a troll or an internet troll yet. At that point in time, you took what anybody said on the internet at face value, and that it was a serious sort of comment, and that it needed to be replied to.
Yeah.
So if somebody said on the wall of our band page, you guys fucking suck, I think your music's lame, we took it upon us to say, well, we need to correct them. We need to explain to them how our music does not suck, and we should talk to this person.
Yeah.
Because there was no precedence for trolling. There was no such thing. So
we just didn't have a concept of the fact that like people could just get online and hate on you, and you didn't have to respond to it.
And they had no interest, little to our chagrin, they had no interest in actually having a civil conversation about what we were going to say. To them, it was the adrenaline rush of talking shit remotely. That's all that mattered to them. So yeah, I'd probably learned a few hundred hard lessons in that game of just getting buried by people or wasting my time on MySpace trying to explain myself and then getting cornered and ganged up
Were
on.
you an HTML expert because of all the
I,
profile customizations?
you know what? One of my side hustles was I customized other band pages for our friends who didn't know how to do it. So yeah,
A
they
guy that
paid
I
me
knew.
$500 to go in and customize their MySpace profile, and I would do
Dude,
that on tour.
exactly. So a guy I
Yeah.
knew, he was just a smart guy. I didn't realize that at the time how smart he was, but like same age, teenager, but he saw the opportunity, and like he would just customize people's HTML pages all day long, spend $100, and people, and like you had 16-year-old girls who were like, yeah, I want the most beautiful layout ever, and then bands and even businesses, and he would do like he would make $500 in a day, and it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
that's an absurd concept. Like,
Especially back then, I had all these templates. So I had like this template, that template, this banner, female template, male template,
yeah,
business template, restaurant template, and I had them all saved in like these different like sort of notepads. And somebody would hire me. It would take me like 3 or 4 hours, and they'd have this beautiful page. They go, "How did you do that?" I was like, "Magic," you know.
it's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, so
And now we don't get to customize anything.
yeah,
It all looks terrible all the time.
well, yeah, it's because they're like, not only did they take away customization so that you have no actual personality on your social media, but they took away the ability to learn a new trade. You know, at least with MySpace, like, hey, if you want to learn how to code, we're going to give you the ability to code, and you can teach yourself how to do something. Now it's like Instagram. What is Instagram teaching you? It's actually doing the complete opposite. It's giving you bad behavioral patterns and rewarding you for the stuff that's got no value.
You know, what's funny is I had Scott Page, Pink Floyd, on here, and we were talking about how like I have no problem with influencers as a career. Problem I have is that when your career does not teach you any skill set. So in other words, if your skill set is just that you know how to put suggestive pictures of yourself on the internet, that's not a skill set. You can do that with any digital device, and anybody can do that, right? That's just the truth. There is no skill set. Nobody's ever going to hire that person to come help them post suggestive pictures of themselves on the internet. And I'm not just saying women. Yes, there's a predominance, right, with them, but there's a bunch of guys out there who are just absolute idiots, and they aren't good writers. They aren't good editors. They aren't good at particularly anything in the world. They just happen to be willing to be stupid. And then even in the ways that they're stupid, it's not smart or clever like classical comedians who had to be really intelligent, or a stand-up comedian who had to be witty and sharp. No, you're talking about guys who make a living off of making other people's lives miserable.
Yeah, these pranksters, which is like I enjoyed Jackass because they only did it to each other. They didn't destroy other people.
They did absolutely crazy stuff. They did real crazy stuff.
Right, but they were doing it to each other. They were
doing it to each other. Everybody
street.
knew what they were getting into. Right. They knew that at any point your house could be hit with a bulldozer and a wrecking ball, and that's on you because you signed up.
Yeah, because you're friends with Biehn and you're filming a TV show. Yes,
yeah.
You signed up for that. But yeah, no, dude, I completely agree. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, and I'll just, this is more of a fast forward now into the overall discussion.
Yeah.
I think social media on a net negative or net positive discussion, I think the net positive of social media is almost zero. I think as a whole, I think social media in conjunction with some other things has destroyed society. And for the few positives you can point out about it, they were unnecessary positives, right? You want to talk to a loved one? We already had the telephone.
Well, and we even had MSN and AOL where you could actually video chat.
We had Skype. You want to do a video call?
Skype, yeah.
We had it. You know, MySpace, at first it seemed good, but it became a cesspool for just all kinds of bad things. And once you tie in imagery along with strangers and the ability to reach out to strangers and tie it with suggestive imagery, what you're getting is you're getting weirdos being created on a daily basis, but you're also getting the weirdos that were in the shadows coming out to the forefront and
Mm-hmm.
making a living off of it, right? So you're getting
Yeah.
these people that otherwise used to have shame in their game. Now they're essentially proud of it because they're being rewarded for it. And so, again, I see absolutely no merit in social media. This idea that like we're all more connected now because of Facebook and Instagram. It's like,
Oh,
I can promise you
the
we're
big
not.
lie.
It's the world's biggest lie. When I hear people like Zuckerberg talk about what Meta's doing to connect people in the metaverse and all this stuff that's coming and how Facebook connected the world and it enabled this and enabled that, I'm like, no, it didn't. It made everybody more angry. It made us more divided. It made everything more polarized, and it gave way to. Let's be totally honest. It's given way to making basically anything and everything pornographic. So
You're not wrong.
so that it can be clicked on and monetized.
Let's get real, right? And I actually really appreciate that you bring this up, because I think that there is a stigma around calling out the negatives. And we're only allowed to call out the ones where we say, well, Mark Zuckerberg is bad. Well, listen, let me tell you the truth. Yeah, he's actually not a great person. I'm not going to say I know him personally, but I will say that actions speak louder than words. And when you see the actions of anybody at the top at Google, anybody at the top at Facebook, anybody at the top at TikTok, Instagram, which really, again, that's really still Zuckerberg, and you see the actions they're taking, it's not hard to tell where their priorities lie. Okay, now set that aside. Now to what you said, right? Make anything pornographic, anything sexual. It's so kind of weird to me that we have a world is so contradictory that says, government, protect our children from being exploited on social media, right? We have parents, we have individuals all over the world that say, government, protect my children from being exploited on the internet. But these are the same parents that help their kids dress and act in a way and will hold the camera to put them on the internet. These are the same parents that we learned about from young child actors whose parents totally destroyed their lives.
Yeah.
And those are the same people.
Yeah. We call them pageant moms or pageant dads. It's like they're taking their 4-year-old daughter, putting them in 30-year-old makeup that, an adult should be wearing, and putting them in a little dress and propping them up on a stage and going, you're the most beautiful thing in the world. Now go act like you're beautiful at 4 years old, wear heels, wear all this crazy shit.
Dude, growing up, I knew, I won't say who, because I won't say too many specifics because they'll know, but I knew someone growing up. I was like 13, 14 at the time. And I had a friend, had a sister, pretty sister, and the mom would brag about how many older men, right? And I shouldn't say men, older guys, 17, 18 would want to date her, would ask her out, and then would parade her. And then at the same time have an issue with the way that someone else was creepy. In other words, I'll help my daughter be creeped on. But then if someone comes in that I didn't help my daughter creep on, now I have a problem?
Yeah, right.
What?
Right.
Right.
What? No.
I don't understand.
It doesn't make sense, but that's what I'm saying about social media. When something is new and novel, people don't realize how dangerous it is, because new things are never immediate. They're little by little, right? So you're basically slowly getting encroached upon, right? It's like in war. You don't just tell the other, country that you're coming at them and run at them 1,000,000 miles an hour so they can see you coming. You encroach little by little.
Yeah.
You act like you're not walking, and when they sleep, you take 10 more steps. And when they wake up, you act like you didn't take 10 steps. And they go back to sleep, you take 10 more steps. Next thing you know, you're nose to nose with them. You didn't see it coming. That's my comparison to the normalization of all of the shit that social media has done. Like, it's normalized, like, oh, okay, in 2013, people were posting photos of their food. But then one girl was like, what if I post a photo of my ass? Oh, Instagram removed it. But what if 10,000 girls post a photo of their ass and they complain because it's in a bathing suit? Okay, fine. We'll let those stay if it's a bathing suit. And then a year later, you've got 1,000,000 girls posting bathing suit photos, and then they're getting all the followers. And here we are, fast forward to 2024, everything you see on Instagram, everything you see is sex. If it's not, If it's not, it's an advertisement or some sort of business, and they're paying to get you in their feed. Or it's like, your mom or your dad who post once every 3 months, right? But that's all it's become.
I'm a really transparent person when it comes to the dangers, particularly for men in this world. I actually am really transparent, and I tell my wife about it. I tell her, I go, listen, just so you understand, everyone in the world is trying to make me be unfaithful to you. Mark Zuckerberg wants me to cheat on you as much as possible because he gets paid. The more that I covet, the more that I lust, the more that I go after these women that are not you. And so I tell my wife that because I want her to know she needs to help protect me too. She needs to look out for me too, because every show and every movie and every social media post, I mean, it is such a frustrating struggle when you're trying to be a faithful guy, when you're trying to not be a guy who just stares at sexualized women all day long.
Well, I would beg to differ that it's worse for women. Right? Okay, we're seeing as men, we see women, hot women, and scantily clad women all day on social media, and so it's tempting. But it's actually it's tempting in the sense that like it's fun to look at, but the chances that any average man has a opportunity with that woman they're looking at, or they're even going to get a response from them, is almost zero.
That's
right?
fair. Yeah.
However, women, they post one photo of them looking that way, hundreds, sometimes thousands of DMs from high quality men, not just average losers. We're talking guys with money and great jobs, and they travel and they own cars, and they are coming in there now. Women who used to be interested in finding a relationship and being loyal and finding somebody they could actually fall in love with and respect, they now go, well, why would I choose one when I've got hundreds and I can use these people and I can stay single? I don't need to have kids. All I have to do is open my DMs and get my heart's content.
I think that's a good point. It's like every single one of them, instead of becoming the Playboy bunny, they became Hugh Hefner themselves.
That's exactly it. And to me, that is, I mean, just think about it, right? Like that's the immediate degrade of society, right? If you have women who are not interested in having kids coming up at scale, and you have women who are looking at men like they're just something that can be used, that they don't actually need them around, they just need their money, right? So
and then men saying, why would I turn around and invest in the skills and the qualities that make me a man that is desirable to a woman that I will be happy with, right? Why would I do that when I can just pay $5 a month, see the most attractive women in the world, objectively, right, in the world, for $5? Why would I work my butt off to get a woman who's more, Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about this, right? Why would we ever focus on getting someone that is more comparable to us when we can have the best for $5?
Furthermore, taking the next step, let's just say you are a man that has the skill sets and the money and the things that you want. There's a very, very high chance that when you find that beautiful woman, that like gorgeous woman that's in the 1 percentile that every man wants, you already know now that she's got thousands of options because of the way the world works. So there's a very, very high chance that even if you do get into a relationship with her, at some point, she is probably going to leave you for something bigger and better because she has that option. And you as the man, we are legally set up, at least in this country, to get destroyed.
Yeah.
If there's kids involved, if there's property involved, the woman is getting basically whatever she wants because of the way that the legal system's set up. So, man, even if he is the greatest option as a man, if she at any point just decides, well, I want to go find something different or better now, the cards are stacked against us. Why would a man want to even go do that now? Okay, so I've got the internet, I've got my $5. I can go on dating sites and just go on random dates. Tell me why I would want to go engage in a long-term relationship with somebody who's
right. Why would I even want to become a better person? That is really why. Like, let's be really transparent here, right? I wanted to become a better person. First, it started in a very selfish way: career, money, because I wanted women. That's the truth. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to make good money so that I could have more women that would be interested in me, right? Because that is what men have to do. Men have to go prove that they're worth.
By the way, that doesn't make you a pig. In order to find the person you want to start a family with and mate, you have to become attractive and you have to become desirable by many women so you can choose the right one for yourself. They're not coming to you unless you do that.
I agree. 100%. We got to go do that. And first it started out superficially. It's like, I'm going to go do the superficial things, and that's what will make me worthy. Then you start to do the superficial things. You start to date women. You start to get what you think you wanted. And then you start to learn, oh, this produces really shallow relationships, right? When it's based off of money only, when it's based off of clout, prestige only, and vice versa. When it's based off of her looks only, it's a shallow relationship. It won't last. It's going to deteriorate really fast. So then I have to make a decision. Every man has to make that decision. Okay, do I work on myself internally now? I've worked on the exterior. I've done enough to kind of make me able to sustain a relationship. But now internally, am I going to work on myself, or I'm going to use more leverage in money and more leverage in business to get what I want? That is where I had to eventually turn around and say, I got to work internally, because I do want more from the relationship than just superficial things. Now, what's the need for it? Why would any woman choose any guy? Like you said, she can have them all without any commitment whatsoever. She can have the best superficial perks of every guy that she could pretty much want. And as she is, and then at the same time, why would any guy ever commit? Because again, guys were led sexually absolutely so much of the time. And so we think that paying that $5, we're getting what we want. We believe that lie. We believe that we pay the $5, we got what we wanted. It's a high, right?
Well, the $5 is cheaper than the half of everything we've ever earned.
Right. And then there's that inherent fear. So then we have the superficial side, but then we have a legitimate fear. Right?
Yeah.
It's a legitimate fear. It's crazy. Someone was just talking about Mackenzie Bezos, right? And the fact that it's like Forbes put her on a list, and it was like, listen, I'm not saying she didn't do cool and awesome things. I'm not saying that she isn't intelligent, but she made the list because she divorced Bezos. That is the only reason. And that's not an attack on her any means. I don't know the situation. I don't know all the details.
But it's rewarding
that behavior. That's right. We're idolizing it. We're saying, look, this is a woman to aspire to be. Not her merits, not her wisdom, intelligence, accomplishment, not her motherly nature, nothing. It's literally idolize her because she took half of a fortune from a man.
That's what I'm saying about, if we go back to the original point here about social media. What's done is it's decayed basic values and whittled it down to a soundbite. Right? Like, oh, it used to be about having values, and it used to be about having skill sets. Now it's, did you get 10,000 people to see your ass pic, and will 5% of them pay you $10 a month to see more?
Right.
You did? You're awesome.
I aspire to be you.
Right.
You're brave. You're a businesswoman. You're it.
Well, again, because this is also new, nobody ever accounts for these things in real time, right?
Of course.
It's all new. People don't realize is all these people who think they're social media famous, fine. If you're Jake Paul or you're with some of these people that have made so much money that it's not going away unless you're a total idiot, you're only making a few $100,000 a year, you're making $1 million a year even, you might think that's going to last you forever. Your looks start to fade and your subscribers start to fade, and you weren't really smart about your money, and you wake up one day and you're 40 years old and you don't have kids, you don't have family, you can't have kids, your bank account's dwindling, and you realize you don't really have any friends, and you can't go get a day job because you're self out there that way, you don't have any way to go get work. What are you going to do? We're just now starting to see some of that, like people in the past 10 years who are like regretting going that route and then trying to come back from it. And so
it's a hard road to come back from. It's very hard.
It's hard. And then,
we have porn stars. Many porn stars have come out and said, like, nobody wants to be with them. Yeah, everybody wants to sleep with them. Nobody wants to build a life with them.
But at this point, in my opinion, you don't even have to be a porn star anymore. Like, I think guys are getting hip to the fact, and girls are the same way, right? This isn't just a girls thing. I go to somebody's social media page, and every photo of them is them trying to look like they're sexier, or it's about the nice meal they went and ate, or it's about look at the celebrities I'm always with all the time. You basically are telling me without telling me you value that more than anything else.
Hmm.
And there's a high chance you've already been through dozens and dozens of many relationships with all kinds of people who have used you looks or for your body or whatever it is. And sending out the message to me and to other people that it'd be hard to get you to be in a serious relationship because you're not going to understand how to value it. You're not going to
Guys and girls,
understand
completely agree.
guys and
Completely
girls.
agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
This idea that having as many clicks and follows and likes and fame and as much attention as possible is a good thing is really just a short-term recipe for long-term disaster.
Absolutely.
All it is.
I mean, again, it's like, okay, so, I do a lot of investing and I have real estate companies and stuff like that. And it's like someone who spends all their money all the time. You have this one asset, sometimes intended. You have this one asset and you spend it all. Okay? And you think that that's an investment and that investment is going to get you the rewards that you long term look for, but it's the exact opposite. Every time you spend it in the way that it's currently being spent on social media is you're making it more difficult to get what you want in life. I mean, what's crazy is that there's so much science behind this too. For everyone is like, I don't subscribe to your type of religion or your type of value system. I'm like, don't do it. Who cares? I am a Christian, sure. Don't listen to me though. Look at every reputable science article out there and it will tell you that these behaviors always end in higher divorce rates, more less fulfilling sexual relationships, even. Like,
but because of social media, there's an echo chamber of what facts even are now.
yeah,
There's no
agreed.
such thing as facts if you're talking to a person who doesn't respect facts.
The
Right?
the my truth.
Yeah. How do you get somebody to respect a fact if they don't respect facts in general?
Right.
Right. And the other thing is because of social media, all you have to do is see one person that's successful that hasn't imploded from that success. See yourself in those shoes because what's the famous saying? It's never going to happen to me till it happens to me. If you're telling somebody, don't you see the science says this, that person has confirmation bias. All they have to do is look at Kim Kardashian and go, well, she's still rich, she's still happy, and she's still got a TV show. She's fine, and even though
she's got kids and she's got
even
sisters and mom and
Kanye got divorced, they still talk. And look, I mean, and she's got her own company. I mean, see, it can be done, and that's all the information they need. That's the science right there. That's the science.
Mhm.
But that is the problem with the echo chambers that social media has created. Without the echo chambers of media, which is like news media, CNN, NBC, Fox, whatever you want to call it, all of them, by the way.
Mhm.
Without those,
Absolutely.
without mainstream media and without the boomerang effect that it happens inside of social media of those opinions, we wouldn't be in this conundrum. What we have is everybody's personal view of themselves has been factioned off into a tiny little corner and only have to believe what they want to believe because it's being confirmed to them the minute they open their phone. It's confirmed that they're right every 2 seconds.
What do you think is the solution, right? Like, just in your, again, forget about hypotheticals and or facts even in this scenario, just totally in your brain, from your perspective, is it burn all social media down, or do you think it's change social media? Alternative, right? Because part of me is I try to be fair. Sometimes I'm a little harsh and a little critical. It's always easy to do that from where I'm sitting, right? It's easy to just point at people and say, you're an idiot. You should have chose better, right? Part of me is like, well, man, if the whole world is telling men and women, especially the younger ones coming up, that they need to live a certain way, that this is the best way for them to live, right? There isn't a single girl being told in a cultural sense in America right now who isn't being told that her body is her business and that she should sell it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's one of the best ways for her to get ahead in life is to sell herself online. So do we blame her more, or do we turn around and say it happened because she had no alternative? Because all social media works the same right now.
Well, yeah, it's look, you can't blame the individuals in a herd because the point of herd mentality, you can't blame the individuals. That's human. We have herd mentality. So if it's available to you, no repercussions for it, you're going to do it. It's like saying, is it a good thing that drinking and driving is illegal? Say yes, a good thing. Now people argue, but that doesn't stop people from drinking and driving. Yes, some, but it deters a ton of people. It deters it. They're like, no, I'm not getting a fucking
Just
DUI.
ask Uber and Lyft how many calls they get that
Right,
lead at a bar.
right. And so you look through history too. Anytime something is getting to critical mass or it's getting to a point where it's unhealthy, it usually doesn't end pretty. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually some sort of war or some sort of event that brings the whole thing down because it wasn't working and they have to start over. Ask my opinion, man. If they shut off social media in the United States of America tomorrow and said these things are no longer allowed in the App Store, go back to having video calls, meeting your friends for lunch, phone calls. It's going to be like that for 5 years. We're doing a 5-year reset, and we'll reassess this after 5 years. But this is no longer allowed. I can promise you, within 12 months, we would have one of the most healthy, like the healthiest sort of imaginable. Just I don't know countries. I don't even know how to describe it. Like people would go back to trying to understand other people because they wouldn't have the echo chamber anymore. Have the escape on their phone.
In other words, the worst choice they have would be taken away from them.
The worst choice.
So
And
they'd be forced to make a different decision.
right. And it's like,
It
that's
doesn't
taking
mean
too
that
much
they would
freedom.
become better people. It just means that they wouldn't have the worst possible decision on the table anymore. They'd still have to make a different decision.
That's all it is. Yeah, if you want to keep selling your body for money, you can. You just can't do it here. You'll have to go back to the corner.
And you won't be selling it to me, and it won't be because I don't even opt in for this, man. I mean, there is
Right.
women that I know who are smart and intelligent and capable that friends with me on social media that I have to unfollow because even them, and I respect them, but more so I respect my wife. And
Sure.
I don't want to see that stuff on my feed. I'm like, listen, I had you as a friend so that you could show me suggestive images of yourself.
Right.
Why is this here? That's
Right,
so. Could you imagine, like when we were younger, right? When we were younger, could you just imagine, like the typical family dinner at night, everyone's sitting around the table, and then a friend of yours comes in, and her boobs are hanging out, and she sits down at the table and kind of puts them in your face. It would be like the craziest, like,
right.
would go off in that moment. But now we're like, hey, welcome. Come on, yeah, do that. And it's like, what the crap?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is if you take away the ability, like how many of these OnlyFans people, you said OnlyFans is gone, social media is gone, but you're still allowed to sell your body. You just have to do it. You have to go out to the corner and you got to
You
go
have to
build
take the
your fan
risk.
base. Right. And we know from growing up how many people we knew that were actually prostitutes that were friends of ours. And I can tell you, it was almost none. Almost none.
It was just a story. It was a story that someone would use from someone else. It was a police officer. It was a sheriff. It was a friend of a friend of a friend who knew a drug addict who could pay their drug bills, right, to buy more crack. They sold their body.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was these crazy, extreme stories.
Okay, that's the safest version for these people. They're stripping.
And even that's filled with horror stories of terrible things.
Well, I'll give you a good example, though, and people forget about this because it was overshadowed by COVID. But do you remember in 2020, for 1 month during the peak of COVID, where TikTok was removed from the App Store and it was blocked? Trump had
Oh,
TikTok.
yes, because that's when we found out that China was, in fact, stealing information. Yep.
Okay, so I remember specifically how different that 1 month of life was between just me and the people I knew in Los Angeles and how happier people were. Artists that I worked with called me and they were relieved they didn't have to worry about TikTok. It was no longer about, remember that dance or have you seen this trend? People would call me and they would have something to say. They'd be like, hey, so what's going on with your music? What's going on with this? And it was a relief off of people. And I remember friends of mine calling me and going, I didn't know how happy I would be knowing that TikTok's gone. Like, I hope it doesn't come back. I was managing a girl at the time who has, by the way, she has 31 million TikTok followers.
That's insane.
And I go, if you lose your TikTok account, isn't that going to kill your business? Because I don't even care. I'll figure it out. She goes, it makes me miserable. And when they took it away for a month, I called her and I go, how are you doing? We're like 2 weeks into you not even having a TikTok anymore. And she's like, I love it.
Happiest she's ever
She
been.
goes, this is amazing. And that is such a good example of like people think they need these things, but they don't realize that how sick they are. Like there is a mental illness amongst all of us from these platforms
Well
that
said.
until you purge yourself from it, until we purge ourselves from it, we're not going to know how ill we are.
You know, I really like that. It's almost like we're all complicit in intentional mental illness, because every study and every report, like you said, the data that we have from diverse amount of researchers and analysts and doctors and whatever, there's nobody out there going, listen, more social media has done wonderful things. No, they go, sometimes in rare cases, get a beneficial thing. In fact, you know what's so crazy about it? To prove it even further, is that when actually doing something that requires thought, interaction's good. Take video games. Play video games. There's a lot of studies that came out that showed that they have better hand-eye coordination, that they actually have better abilities to communicate and have team capabilities, working with teams, and those capabilities, because there's an objective, right? There is an objective, there's a requirement to work together, there is communication, and it's also direct communication. It's not just consumption. It's not just someone posting something out there and then waiting. It's immediate. It is a social interaction. It's a phone call, right? It's you and me talking right now.
Yep.
This is productive. There's a usefulness here because we're discussing, we're thinking, we're going back and forth.
Social media is a one-sided proposition. It is not a conversation. And look, God bless Elon Musk for doing what he did with Twitter and buying that company and firing 80% of the people and showing the whole world that that was a massive, it's so crazy to think, but that social media platform had become a government-owned agency that was pushing out information to its people that they only wanted you to hear. If you like the information, it wasn't allowed. Like, that's great. But at the end of the day, do I think Twitter is the public square, as he calls it, or people call it? No. Really discussing deep, intertwined ideas in long form. You just have people throwing out random one-liners and ideas and links to.
It's kind of like a chat room almost, you know, where it was chaos. Like everybody was saying stuff, and
it's a news feed with a chat room next to it. It's like, hey, here's something that might be news, it might not be, it might be fake, it might be totally legit, and tell me your opinion about it, right? So to me, it's another AOL chat. It's just like,
it sounds like if you had your way, at the very least, you would do a detox where it was like, let's just see what the world would look like without social media for a couple of years, because I think that people may end up being happier and may.
I know what it would look like. It would be a million times better. Are there technology applications that I think are useful? Yeah, Uber. I think Uber is actually useful. It can be useful. I think Airbnb is a useful platform. I think hotel booking apps are useful platforms. I think Spotify is a useful platform. There's technology that does connect the greater.
Well, and all of them did a disruption, right? And, you know, I don't think early days of MySpace was actually facetious at all. If you look kind of their old story, it's very different than the Zuckerberg story. Their origins, their decisions, and in fact, they came more predatory in their nature when Facebook came onto the scene, and they to say, "Wow, Facebook's doing this, we should do that." So they became victim to social media. They saw what their competitors were doing online and said, "We have to be like them." And so, I do think that there's elements where we saw a disruption for brands. I think social media, what you could do with bands on MySpace, it changed the game. Like you said early on, there was a disruption that happened there. And then even games. So Facebook, one of the big things that helped them succeed over MySpace is they allowed software to be developed. Candy Crush. And that is productive. And that gave coders a store and an audience that never existed before. They didn't have any way to reach people. So that we saw. And then all of a sudden, now we're at a point where everything that was good, everything that was productive or empowering was totally stripped away.
It's because you have people at the top that have no values. That's a platform where people can literally chat with each other and send each other photos. We have it. It's called text messaging. It's called group texts. Have that. But a public forum where you can post nudity, kids are going to consume stuff that people that have, medium to low IQs that don't realize what they're reading may not be true or not. They take it as truth. Like,
right.
You're allowing stuff, and people will say, well, that's just censoring people. That's freedom of speech. It's like, that's not freedom of speech. If these are privately held companies, and we're allowing these private companies to post things that are damaging, we could restrict those platforms from, in my opinion, it could be a world in which it's like, hey, say whatever you want to say and say it to whoever you want to say it in person or in a text message. Like, that is your freedom of speech.
Privately.
But then to take it another level and go, I'm going to show my nude body public platform that anybody can consume for free.
Or even the pranksters, right? Even the pranksters.
Right.
At some point, people turning around and stealing. And I mean, and it's literal stealing, right? There are people who are famous for going to a grocery store and licking the ice cream, and famous for it. It's not even penalized, right? They're adored. And you can say all day long, well, there's a bunch of hateful comments. Well, they're getting paid. It doesn't matter what the quality of the contents or the views are. As long as they're getting attention, they're getting paid.
And look, it's like, I am the biggest proponent of speech. I believe you should be able to be whoever you want to be. You should have any sexual preference you want to have. Like, do it all. Like, literally, I could care less. There is a reason why some countries and some cultures, they limit the amount of those things that can be monetized, that can be rewarded, right? Like, you shouldn't be rewarded monetarily, in my opinion, for your sexual preference. You shouldn't be rewarded for degrading the quality of a food product in somebody else's store that could be a health hazard for somebody else who comes and eats it right after you. That shouldn't be rewarded. And the fact that even me saying that sort of stuff should be frowned upon and maybe even pulled or not monetized, the fact that people would even think that what I'm saying is trivial is the scary part. Like,
so you think that's a government thing, or do you think that's a company thing? The social media companies, or do you think it's the government? Or is there some sort of mix?
It's so deeply mixed right now. It's so deeply intertwined.
I know. Is there really much of a difference between the two right now? Not to mention, like, the incompetency of our government to be able to do that. Like, Wedberg trial, and they're, like, asking questions, and it's like, that's not how internet works, just so you know. Like, that's not how ads work. Just like, you had these people who were supposed to be charged with representing and protecting us who didn't even understand how it works.
Well, one of my favorite parts of that Zuckerberg trial was somebody asked him, do you think it's okay for people, for their public information to be available online, or for their location to be tracked by your app, or, that sort of thing? And he goes, yeah, well, I think it's good. And it's fine. And, to agree, it's totally. And I think the woman asked him, well, what is the address of the hotel you're staying at? I'd like to for you to tell the world where you're staying tonight and what address you'll be at so they can find you. And he goes, well, I'm not going to do that. She goes, well, why not? Isn't it a good thing that people know your location? Shouldn't that be a good thing that Facebook knows my location? And he had nothing to say, just deer in headlights. And I'm like, do these people not have any conscience? They don't stop and think about these things ever? But yeah, to your point, we could go down this rabbit hole forever. And
forever.
I have to jump in 2 minutes. But look, I think there is, you asked me what I would do.
Yes.
And that is an answer that's like, personally, if I had the power, I would shut off all social media today. Shut off TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, anything that is of that ilk, I would shut them off permanently. Say, and you're not allowed to launch these types of things anymore. See, I would say, but WhatsApp, Zoom, Riverside, um, Netflix, Spotify, all these things that have use, they produce jobs and they produce income, and
They're also more private.
Yeah, they're more private, but there's also an artistic quality to them, maybe, or
Sure.
there's an actual connection quality to them. Fine, but social media,
Goodbye.
it's garbage. It's
Goodbye.
garbage.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much.